Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. First tonight, tens of thousands across the country have bound together to fight for federal government action on violence and sexual assault. Tasmania is seeing local advocates, survivors and social service leaders speak out for justice and cultural change.
Bold and angry signs proudly held high as the crowd gathers at Hobart's Parliament lawns, sharing a message and chanting as one.
No peace, just women in the streets. No justice, no peace, just women in the streets.
Speaking out against gendered and sexual violence.
We just see the same thing over and over again, no change. Our mothers demanded it, our grandmothers demanded it, our great-grandmothers demanded it, and we're sick of it.
We haven't felt properly listened to, at least on the federal level. So I think everyone's just trying to get together and stand for something and make it known that we're not going to back down.
March for Justice rallies held across Australia, following several allegations emerging from federal parliament. Emotions running high as Australian of the Year and local survivor Grace TAME shares her story.
This surge, this cultural shift, this paradigm shift of normalising the conversation of sexual abuse, you know where that started? It started here!
The movement also hitting close to home for many protesters.
Every single woman that I've ever met has a story about something that happened that shouldn't have happened. Every single woman.
Every woman has a story to tell and no one asks us. And it's rife throughout the community and I'm sick of it.
Silence. Evil thrives in silence. Yes, it does. Behaviour unspoken, behaviour ignored, is behaviour endorsed.
Other speakers calling for more support for vital services, saying they're in high demand but underfunded.
There's a lack of understanding and respect for what we bring as specialist women's services to the sector. And it's that specialisation, it's the trauma-informed approach, it's the multidisciplinary approach.
While pushing for job safety, a common reason for those attacked in the workplace to not come forward.
When people ask, why didn't she say something? A lot of women at work don't say anything because they want to keep their job. So we need to start looking at insecure work as a safety issue and do something about that for women too.
Aboriginal women also calling for change, saying the issue has impacted communities since the colonial era.
We are the most vulnerable in the nation, which is why it's important that we have representation at events such as this to demand the safety of not just Aboriginal women but all women across the country.
COMMANE, 7 Tasmania News.
And if you or anyone you know needs help or this story has caused you distress, you can contact the Sexual Assault Support Service on 1800 697 877. A coronial inquest into the death of a Hobart paramedic has heard scathing evidence about past practices at Ambulance Tasmania. Damien CRUMP took his own life in 2016 after battling depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. Our reporter Sean McComish has more.
An inquest into the death of Damien CRUMP has placed the spotlight on how Ambulance Tasmania previously managed mental health as well as medication supplies. Mr CRUMP took his own life in 2016. The 36-year-old had been battling depression. He cared deeply for other people.
He loved his job, lived for his job.
Today's inquest heard Mr CRUMP was allegedly discovered taking medication from an ambulance station while off duty. It's believed the incident was likely the catalyst for the tragedy. Tasmania Police Sergeant Terry McCulloch undertook the subsequent investigation. He told the inquest mental health and welfare provisions weren't adequate. Some of the mental health provisions to Ambulance Tasmania staff seem to be ad hoc, he said. Mr CRUMP was receiving help from his work as well as privately. Storage of medication was also under the microscope. Sergeant McCulloch said an audit of medication stores found hundreds of entries which couldn't be accounted for. Mr CRUMP's mother ALANAH wants to see Ambulance Tasmania do more for its staff.
They say everything happens for a reason, and maybe that's why I lost him, so that other people could be saved.
The inquest is expected to run for 2 weeks and will hear further evidence from senior Ambulance Tasmania staff as well as unions.
And if you or someone you know needs help, contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. Tasmania's vaccine rollout is ramping up, with the first jabs in the north and northwest of the state being administered to frontline workers today. Our virus-free streak and vaccine fight is proving more important than ever as two interstate cities grapple with fresh COVID cases in the community.
Robyn Hayes making her mark this morning, becoming the first person in the Launceston General Hospital to receive the Pfizer shot.
Yeah, a bit nervous. My husband reminded me that I was having it. And yeah, my parents are both scientists, so they were very excited too.
1, 2, 3.
The acute medical unit's nurse manager was in the thick of the virus crisis last year, working alongside staff in the LGH's dedicated COVID ward.
Challenging, but rewarding at the same time. I wouldn't like to go through it again, but we had good support from lots of people around the hospital, and yeah, we got there.
The doses were carefully measured up by staff this morning.
I was successful in retrieving 6 doses from the vial, so very excited to see that today.
With just under 300 people booked in to receive their first jab today.
We have a very precious one tray worth of vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine here at the LGH, so we're hoping to achieve that 1,100 or around 1,170 or so doses out of that tray.
Healthcare workers at the Northwest Regional Hospital also rolled up their sleeves for their first Pfizer shots today, while doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine will be administered at the Mersey Community Hospital from Friday. It comes as public health is contacting travellers who've arrived into the state from Brisbane and Sydney after cases were detected there over the weekend.
I would make the point, and it's one that the state is not often given credit for, but we have the best border controls in the country.
A hotel quarantine security guard in New South Wales tested positive for the virus yesterday, but so far no new cases have emerged.
And it validates our position of making sure we vaccinate all of our hotel quarantine workers first and foremost to minimise the risk. We always know it's a risk of the virus seeping out. Pleasingly to date, there is no evidence of widespread transmission.
While in Queensland, Brisbane's Hotel Grand Chancellor remains in lockdown, with investigations confirming the UK variant of the virus spread from one quarantine traveller to another, while also infecting a doctor at the Princess Alexandra Hospital.
There's a lot of work undergoing. We now have CCTV footage in that hotel that'll be reviewed. We'll interview various people and try and understand how the transmission event occurred.
And despite the ongoing risk of border closures, hotel operators are bracing for a strong winter in the wake of the federal government's half-price airfare package.
I think it's a good thing. I think it'll get the whole travel industry going.
Letitia Wallace, 7 Tasmanian News.
The state government has backflipped on plans to build the Spirit of Tasmania replacements in Australia. Premier Peter Gutwein says the decision delaying the project was justified during last year's COVID storm. He's confident the move now will be a compromise that pays off.
A year ago, the state government changed course from Europe to Australian shores. The plan was to see if the new Spirit of Tasmania vessels could be built locally.
We're making an Australian decision today, and we're making a Tasmanian decision because, of course, as we know, we're in very different circumstances to what we were only 6 months ago.
7 months and one task force report later, the government has backflipped, deciding to again go with Finnish shipbuilder RMC. The Premier defending the delay.
When the decision was due on the Spirits last year in June, our government was faced with a vastly different economic landscape than we now face.
The report looked at 3 options: building a steel hull overseas and fitting it out locally, adding a catamaran to support the fleet, or heading back overseas. The state government has picked option 3, but there's still some uncertainty.
In the event that RMC and TT Line are not able to reach contractual agreement in the next 30 days, the government and TT Line will proceed to the open market in line with the task force recommendations and call for new proposals.
Tasmanian catamaran builder Incat says it's deeply disappointed. Labor's called the plan a cruel hoax. However, the tourism lobby is on board, even if they say the task force was pointless.
The reality is TT Line looked at this 4 years ago and concluded that the best model was the ships and the business case that they've got. They spent the last 6 months doing the same thing. Enough's enough. We just need to get on with it and get the ships we need for the state for the next 20 years.
We're not back where we started. I mean, we've done a lot of work over the last 6 to 8 months.
The decision comes with a promise of including up to $100 million in Tasmanian content. The government expects the vessels to be delivered between 2023 and 2024. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
Police are warning Tasmanian businesses to be on the lookout for counterfeit banknotes after seizing a raft of $50 and $100 fakes on the northwest coast. Authorities say the bogus cash has distinct Chinese writing printed on them. Anyone with information should contact Crime Stoppers. They're the predators that for years have terrorised thousands of native animals across Bruny Island. But now a new facility is aiming to stem the rise of wild cat populations. Experts believe feral numbers will soon drop, allowing endangered species to survive and thrive.
For years, the problem has remained uncontained, the scourge of wild cats infesting Bruny Island and depleting native wildlife.
A feral cat can destroy 750 birds, lizards, animals in a year.
The highly endangered eastern quoll has become a particular hunting target. Across the country, a rate of 5 felines per kilometre is considered high, but on some parts of Bruny Island,
we've recorded up to 51 cats per square kilometre at the neck, which is among the highest across Australia that we know of.
But now, a small step towards fixing a monster problem, the opening of the first ever Bruny Island cat management facility.
It deals with feral cats, stray cats, domestic cats.
Previously, locals were forced to make a 4-hour round trip to dissex pet cats or bring in captured wild predators.
If they're fit for rehoming, we take them through to 10 Lives, where they're vaccinated, desexed, put in foster care and then rehomed.
They now have a one-stop shop on the island. It's hoped the centre will aid in reducing the numbers of unwanted pests, but ultimately long-term responsibility falls back on the community.
You can still own a cat, it just needs to stay on your property, away from wildlife.
Garth, Burley, 7 Tasmania News.
Local taste buds will be tingling as a delicious festival returns to Hobart in a slightly different format after being cancelled last year. The Moona Taste of the World, while usually just one day, will see various events hosted throughout this week, exploring and celebrating the traditions and flavours of our diverse community.
Highlights the value that our multicultural communities play. It's a great opportunity for people to learn a little bit more about their neighbours, to understand the different cultures around the world that live right here in Glenorchy.
The event runs until Sunday. They're the unsung hospital heroes who cheer up children when they're most vulnerable. Today, the Clown Doctors kicked off a campaign for the public's help as part of a statewide funding drive. The group makes regular surprise hospital visits in Burnie, Launceston and Hobart.
It is just so nice to be able to get back in there and do what we want to do, and that's create cheer in a space that desperately needs it.
Throughout this week, they're hoping to raise more than $60,000 at roadside collection sites. The Launceston Hospital Auxiliary today chipped in $7,000 to the cause, while Bellamy's Organic will match fundraising efforts dollar for dollar.
Olympia will use their Summer Cup win as a springboard into this year's Super League season. The Warriors thrashed Canberra 4-1 on Saturday in a comprehensive performance. With a number of new players in the squad, the reigning champions were pleased with their pre-season form.
Very important for us to sort of start making our mark in this league and to, it really starts us off on a good foot and a good way forward to come out with some hardware right from the get-go.
Especially with a new team, with people having left and coming in, we've done very well, and it was very important to us to win.
Olympia's title defence will begin on Sunday against Taroona. Huge numbers of motocross riders have clicked back into gear for round 1 of the Tasmanian Championships in Bridport over the weekend. Last year's state champion Brodie Ellis looked unbeatable after the first race, but Hugh Mackay bounced back, winning the second encounter and taking out the overall win. The next round of racing will be held in Penguin.
Good evening. Temperatures above average over the central north today. Cressy our high with 27 degrees. Hobart and Burnie 23, Launceston 25 and Devonport 24. St Helens and Friendly Beaches 25 degrees. Bushy Park 22. Flinders Island and Low Head both 20 today. King Island and Grove 19. Lyawini and Strawn reached 17. There was scattered cumulus cloud today, mainly over the west, far south and far northeast. It brought a few showers as well to the west and south. A large portion of the south and southeast of the mainland under clear skies today. A long cloud band extends from Western Australia down and across to the Tasman Sea and more over the Southern Ocean. Tomorrow the high moves to our southeast with troughs near WA and over Queensland. Southeast to southwesterly winds 10 to 20 knots, more easterly over the north and later over the east. Swells at 4 metres in western and southern waters, coming down from 6 metres early. Hobart tomorrow 20 and mostly sunny, partly cloudy for Adventure Bay, 17 the top. Cool night for Tarraleah, a top of 21. Launceston 23 and partly cloudy, Devonport 20, bit of cloud for Bridport but fine and 21 degrees. Burnie partly cloudy and 19, partly cloudy also for Strawn and Marrawar, both reaching 20 tomorrow. And for St Helens partly cloudy, 19 for Swansea, Whitemark on Flinders 21 degrees. UV still in the high range at 7. Wednesday now, fine with partly cloudy conditions, a sunny day and 23 in Hobart. A possible light shower over the northwest and northeast on Thursday, otherwise fine. And on Friday, fine, Launceston 25 and Hobart 24. Partly cloudy and 34 in Perth. Partly cloudy weather for Adelaide and Melbourne as well. A shower developing over Sydney and rain at times and 23 in Brisbane. Partly cloudy at the moment, 17 in Hobart. Still the sun shines over Launceston, 21 at the moment and 20 currently in Devonport. Fairly consistent week coming up, Kim, with temperatures in the mid to high 20s later in the week. Let's get excited. This time of year we can take anything.
I love it. Good weather, good mood. That's your news for now. I'll be back later with updates. Thanks for joining us. Good night.